Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi and welcome back to that Trippi Show. This week, it's still all about the contrast, and the RNC is proving it every day at their convention. Before we get started, we are recording this episode just before Trump's speech on Thursday. But honestly, if he goes moderate, and I know.
Moderate, giant air quotes.
Yeah, if he does that, it's all BS anyway, and that tone won't last a nanosecond after the convention's over. I highly suspect nothing important's going to happen or really going to change in his delivery tonight. But if it does, and it's worth following up, we'll post something at the top of this episode. I get the feeling that talking heads are looking for an excuse to talk about the pivot anyway. So lots to get into this week. Alex, where should we get started?
Joe, I know we've got a lot to talk about from the RNC, how everyone should be reacting to it. That will be the bulk of our show, but I'll just ask the question on everybody's mind about where Joe Biden is. And before we get to where you think, I just want to point out this from Axios today. President Biden may decide to drop out of the presidential race as soon as this weekend, according to several top Democrats who believe the rising pressure will persuade him. And then another quote, top Biden aides, including ones who initially urged him to fight on after the debate, are saying it's now when, not if, Biden announces he's not running. Joe, what do you think the latest is here?
I think that is the latest. I mean, that just broke a few minutes before we started recording. But everything I'm hearing internally is that, regardless of our belief here on the podcast, that it says, hey, Biden still has a much better chance to win this thing than the pundits, and the polling actually keeps showing that there hasn't been much change, and that he's within the frame of being able to win. I think the damage just continues to be done here, and it looks to me like you can expect that by the end of the weekend, you'll know one way or the other for sure. These kind of statements, even from top aides, saying that it's not a question of when, not if, that he's out of the running. When you start seeing that, you know that what you've been hearing behind the scenes, and it is what I've been hearing behind the scenes, is that the ground has shifted. Even Joe Biden's own internal thinking has shifted in a way where he's more open to the discussion about whether he should stay in or not. And in particular, has come, I think, to believe that Kamala Harris can win and be stronger possibly than he himself, which he has not believed till now. But if that's what Joe Biden believes, I've said all along that I believe he would do what was best for the country and best for the party and best to defeat Donald Trump. It looks like he may be coming to the conclusion that the best way to do that is to pass the torch to a new generation of leaders and Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. We'll see, but that's sort of my take. And I am convinced that Biden has been looking at this, hearing all the comments and the different meetings that he's had with Schumer and Pelosi and Clyburn and the conversations he's had, and is looking at this more and more every day from what's the best thing to do. And I think coming to the conclusion that passing the torch is the best way to take on the real threat to democracy here that Donald Trump is.
Joe, as we're getting into it, and again, I don't want us to spend too much time trying to get into the president's head, but, it reminds me, and this story made the rounds again on Twitter this morning as well, of our old friend, Pat Caddell, who was Joe Biden's pollster back in, I think, his first Senate race in maybe 72. And it was Labor Day that summer, and he was down 47-19. Everyone told him he couldn't win. Everyone told him it was quixotic. He had no chance of winning. And by the way, his opponent was really popular, incumbent senator, former governor, beloved. And by the way, Nixon was at the top of the ticket that year. Nixon goes on, wins the state with 60%. And Joe Biden, of course, defies gravity, wins by about a point and a half. And in the face of everything. And that's pretty much been the story of his career. So, look, I know a lot of people in the media are ready to kind of put a bow on this. But to understand where he is and what he's faced and how he's fought his whole life. I don't want to discount that, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for it.
No, he deserves credit for that. But look, frankly, that was against an incumbent. He is the incumbent. I mean, there's a lot of things that are different about that. I also think the Joe Biden in that race is different than the Joe Biden of today, part of the, what 81 years does. And I think he may be coming to grips with that and understanding the difference. In the end, look, he stopped Donald Trump from returning to the White House in 2020. He's done an incredible job for the 3.5 years he has been in office and has held the coalition together, the alliance together, to stop Putin from succeeding in his invasion of Ukraine, which is a dire threat to democracy, in not just in Ukraine, but across Europe and to the world if it was continued to run unabated. And I think he's got a lot of work to do to help bring a permanent ceasefire in the Middle East. And so this is not the end of the Joe Biden chapter if he decides to do this. But I think for him to focus on finishing the job that he has before him this last half of the year, while passing the torch to a new generation of Democrats and new leaders in the country, who are basically moving towards the future with real ideas that have sort of been clouded by all this, I think is, if he chooses this path, a remarkable career and an incredible legacy if we defeat Trump. He will be the person who made all the decisions that made that possible again. And so we'll see. I trust him to do what's best for the country and give us our best shot.
All right. Well, Joe, let's get to the rest of the big news this week. And there has been a lot. Again, I think you said last week it felt like a year. Well, it's been another year.
It's been 5 years this week.
Yeah, seriously. So let's start with JD Vance, shall we? So Trump picked JD Vance, which I'm still scratching my head about. A lot of people online are. Probably our most common listener question this week. One thing we got consistently was, you keep talking about how presidential politics and winning presidential campaigns is about being additive, and this doesn't seem like it's additive on the face of it. What the hell?
Look, this is clearly a doubling down on getting the votes of white men is all it is. I mean, it is a mini me Trump in JD Vance. And I think there was no added. He didn't go outside, didn't try to broaden the messaging. In fact, if you're worried about, if they were concerned about women at all, JD Vance has to be the worst possible pick on the planet, given his views on abortion, IVF, contraception, all of it. He's just, way over the top on going in the absolute wrong direction. The guy's opposed to abortion, even in cases of rape and incest, and has spoken out, loudly about it.
Well, and wants a national abortion ban so
Right.
women can't travel to get abortions, even if it's in, not illegal in the state.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's way, way, way out there. So it's about tech bros and trying to pick up cryptocurrency folks. There's nothing additive about it other than, I guess, trying to really create some excitement with the MAGA base. And I think that's what this is. I think this is a turnout choice. I think what they've decided is that the way to win is to make sure that they increase the turnout of white men to get that out as high as possible, and are very unconcerned about anything else. Because, like I said, the big problems with abortion, he just deleted the page on his website that said he is for an abortion ban, but he's on record like so many times it's not even funny. Right. You can't erase it on the internet. His biggest constituency is Russia. He's one of the most anti-Ukraine voices in a very anti-Ukraine party now, at least the party that Trump's leading.
So with all that said, like with his deeply problematic positions. And when I say problematic, look, you don't agree with him. Don't agree with him. But the problem is here, like a majority of the people that he needs to go win to be vice president don't agree with them. So it's just, to me, it really is a head scratcher of a pick.
Well, he's also the inventor of the sweater vest. I mean, he will, I'm sure, go out there and try to say the right things to make sort of moderate what his past has been, but that doesn't fly. He was that guy when he was against Trump, said Trump was the GOP's Hitler, and all the other things that he is. I mean, this guy is really interesting in that he is the chameleon, but where his true values, where he truly is the guy who wants a national abortion ban so that women can't travel across state lines. I mean, that's who this guy is. That's going to become apparent. And the other thing is, it'll be interesting to see how they use him because, as you've pointed out, Alex, Trump doesn't usually react really well to others in his orbit who are flying too close to the sun.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard for JD to avoid that. He likes the light, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays.
So, and again, a very difficult pick really to make. I mean, obviously he's the anti-Mike Pence in a lot of ways, but as you said, when you get to be like too big in Trump's eyes, he will cut you down. He doesn't care if you're his vice presidential pick, his family, it doesn't matter. Like, so for Vance to be so clearly nominated as kind of the crown prince of MAGA here, like, crown princes tend to not wake up sometimes.
Yeah, well, also, Eric and other Trumps might not be too thrilled about being supplanted as the heir apparent of MAGA. But, look, I don't think this guy is going to wear well as more and more facts about him come out and where he is on the issues, particularly the Project 2025 stuff and how extreme he is. This is a doubling down on MAGA. It's about turning out, really ginning up the base and isn't additive at all. In fact, I think over time will drive more and more people away, more women and others. It's really interesting because it's like, I think all of us were worried about like Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, who was speaking at the convention, showing that, oh no, the assassination attempt really has changed Donald Trump. All the glowing stuff that's been out there since then about how he's realized his mortality and is rethinking the way he taught, yeah, right, okay. And then he goes out first thing, picks Vance. Like that's the one thing that tells you everything you need to know about Trump changing is like right there. His pick is JD Vance. By the way, somebody he will not ever have to worry about people chanting, hang Mike Pence. I mean, it's because this guy will do everything that Trump tells him to do. And he has said, by the way, that if he had been Pence on January 6th, he would have not certified.
He would have blocked it. Yeah.
He would have done what Pence wouldn't do. So the one guy who saved democracy that day and got, hang Mike Pence and a gallows with a rope thrown over it if they found him, that guy, nowhere to be found at the convention, isn't endorsing Donald Trump, and he picks someone who has said repeatedly, no, if it had been me, I would have stopped that vote and thrown it back to the states and created the constitutional crisis that would have kept Trump in office. Exactly what Donald Trump was looking for that day. That's what they did. That's why he picked JD Vance.
So the one thing I do want to also mention, and you kind of got to, he really will say anything, but he was like one of the louder critics of Trump in the last 5-6 years. And obviously he's now kissed the ring, which Trump tends to like. But he went pretty far in terms of what he said about Trump. I just Trump is not normally one to get past that.
No, that's not true. Look, this guy called Trump a monster, said he was reprehensible, wondered why anyone would tell their daughters they were voting for him, wondered if Trump was America's Hitler, called him a fraud and insulted the MAGA movement. But Trump loves the person who finds truth, right? The person who learns about their sins and starts to revere him and become more like him. That's, by the way, why all those guys, remember the picture of all the Republicans for that press conference where every one of them was wearing the exact same thing Trump was wearing, red tie, the tie. They're actually mimic him. And JD Vance is one of the strongest to have switched and moved that way. Others like Adam Kinzinger or Liz Cheney, by the way, anybody who actually called him out and stayed there, they're no longer allowed in the party and have no future. This guy, by being such a stalwart, such a dedicated loyalist, by going out there and being even to Trump's right on a lot of things and praising Trump and worshiping him like few others in the party that are outspoken with his communication skills. Now that, and remember, Trump loves somebody he thinks is going to get him some good TV and be good on TV. So no, it makes total sense. What doesn't make sense is like Chris LaCivita and Susie Wells and all of them, they had to have been, you would thought, pushing for something more additive, but maybe not. Maybe they believe the addition is to increase MAGA energy and turnout. We'll see.
Well, it's kind of a situation where, and I think Murdoch was pushing for other people.
Right.
Pretty much everyone in the strategy side was against JD Vance. So we'll see how that goes. Joe, I do want to zoom out to the rest of the RNC and just ask, firstly, look, it's been 3 days now. Trump speaking tonight, like you said, we'll come back to it if we need to. But first of all, it feels like this might be more of a bubble than in years past. Is that fair to say?
Oh, no, it's definitely, I think a lot of people have tuned it out. Ratings, are, at least for the first night, are way down. I haven't seen the second or third night yet, but I think they were down 5 million viewers compared to 2016, even though it was broadcast across 12 broadcasters and cable networks. First of all, I think all this has been baked in the cake for quite a while. We talk about this. We talk about, this 46 dead heat. And I think that, we can argue Biden's down a little bit. But what I'm saying is that the people who are paying attention, the people who believe Donald Trump's a threat to democracy, are not going to watch the celebration of MAGA at the convention. And MAGA is yes, Trump's getting 46. He's been stuck at 46, even with all this, even with the debate and the assassination attempt. It hasn't really changed anything. Why? So who's going to watch? Well, probably the most MAGA people to cheer it all on. Not even. I still think in the last poll I saw something like 31% of Republicans. It's been quoted in the polls about Biden that Trump has the support of 65% of Republicans, while Biden has 65% of Democrats saying it's time for him to step out of the race. And they're using the 65% of Democrats who answer that question saying Biden should step aside as what I keep pointing out to people is, 65% of Democrats may believe that, but guess what? They're voting for Biden. And they'll be voting for whoever the nominee is if it's not Biden, because they're opposed to Donald Trump and the threat he is to democracy. So what you've got is this, I think a bubble or a silo, whatever you want to call it, of most people are watching. Like Fox News was had the mammoth of the millions who did watch. The vast majority of them were on Fox, and very few people, really, I think, who haven't already decided this election are watching this thing to see, maybe this will make my mind up for me. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's usually the faithful that watch these conventions and pay more attention to them on either side, even if it is people like us who kind of have to watch it so we can make sure that those of you who didn't at least know, have some real idea of how crazy it's gotten over there.
It just seemed like, and look, they've done a decent job of uniting MAGA, but there's still that big chunk, and it could be 10%, could be 20%, could be higher. Polls have said it's higher, but it probably won't be at the end of the day. But it's enough. There is still a huge division in the Republican Party. Now, MAGA's together. Haley obviously endorsed Trump, and that was a pretty symbolic moment. But Mike Pence is tweeting about fishing in Montana right now. Mike Pence isn't there. Dan Quayle isn't there. Romney isn't there. Bush isn't there. Cheney isn't there. 40 of Trump's 44 cabinet members aren't voting for him again. That tells you something.
But Paul Manafort's there.
Yeah, Navarro. They got Navarro out of jail, and he walked right on the stage.
Yeah, Navarro got out of jail just in time. I mean, a lot of people who've spent time in jail or were convicted of something are on the floor of that convention, including, by the way, a bunch of fake electors who are now delegates at the convention. So, no, you're right. This is a show for the MAGA faithful with some, I guess they kind of try to sprinkle in some parts of the speeches that you're supposed to think, oh, yeah, that was for the rest of us, because they really are trying to broaden that message. It's just not coming across. I mean, it's all complete bullshit. And I don't think anybody is going to buy it. And I do think, again, 40 of Trump's 44 cabinet members aren't voting for him and aren't there. You know, what will the October surprise be? I think it's likely some of these faces are going to show up all together at some point in the end game and make it clear why they aren't there. Liz Cheney does that every day. Adam Kinzinger does, but some of these other voices, and there are cabinet members of his that have spoken out. In other words, today their absence isn't being noticed because no one's really talking about it. But I think there's going to be a day where there won't be absence. They'll all, I would like to think, will all stand together and speak out against the threat that they all know Donald Trump really is.
Before we move on, I do to a couple other things and wrap up because we're getting close to time already. I do want to talk about the quote unquote pivot. Everyone's trying to figure out a way to say that the Republicans are kinder, gentler, or a softer tone, or appealing to moderates. We should really not kid ourselves here. When you're chanting like fight, 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 and you give MTG a microphone at all, and she just yelled a bunch, like it ain't happening.
No, this is like, you can't kid yourself. The GOP is not toning it down. They're not pivoting. But the press keeps wanting to say it, even though they keep, having to show the chance of fight, 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 like you said. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ron Johnson gave the wrong speech, which accused Democrats of being a clear and present danger to America instead of a different speech, which was calling for unity, or so he claimed. It's just off the charts.
How do you do that? How do you have two speeches that are so different?
Well, then they reloaded it for him. He came in the next day or something and gave a rosier speech. Trump's ICE director got up and said mass deportations of Latinos were going to happen right away, told them to start packing now. And then they handed out mass deportation signs. Mass deportation now signs.
That is not a kinder, gentler party.
No. And by the way, in the roundup, a lot of citizens with Latino or Hispanic surnames are going to get caught up in that stuff and have to prove that they're citizens. This stuff and the other combined with Project 2025 stuff that, of course, Trump knows nothing about. Nothing. Go Google Project 2025 people and keep telling people to Google it. But the people keeps talking about where Biden or the Democrats are with Latinos. Yeah, I got that. I get that. Where Nevada is, where Arizona is. But I keep saying, like, one of the things that we have that's going to keep pushing people away from Trump is Trump and Trumpism. When you start handing out mass deportation now signs on the floor of your convention and think that is somehow not going to push people away that they might be able to get. And by the way, they are getting some of them. I don't think that'll hold. I just don't. I think JD Vance doubles down on this stuff with women. They have their ICE director up there on the stage saying this bullshit. This was the convention where they were supposed to be moderating or changing their tone. It's just not happening. And then even the ones that do kind of get up there and start whispering sweet nothings, eventually somewhere in their speech go straight to the red meat MAGA crap. So I just think there's going to be plenty of things in this and in Project 25 and in who Donald Trump is and who JD Vance is, and where there was no addition, no ability to reach out. And in fact, if we go back and really look at it, we're going to look and see in things like the mass deportation now signs and other things that the rhetoric that they did gives further ammunition to make the case of exactly the kind of threat they are to rights and freedoms and democracy itself. And that in the end, a lot of the groups that are on the sidelines right now are conflicted, that cross pressure we talk about so often. I think they're going to add to the cross pressure on their side that I still think today would make Biden give him a viable chance to win. I still think everybody's overthinking that, but I also understand reality. And if the reality is that it won't be him, I think that contrast becomes, at least the age part of the contrast, the 78-year-old versus the 81-year-old, that goes away and even frees up more of those people to come over to the pro-democracy side, particularly when they hear more of that kind of garbage coming out of this convention.
Joe, I know we're kind of working backwards chronologically this week. This would probably be the lead story any other week, and we'd be talking about it the whole time. But someone did try to take a shot at President Trump or in his direction on Saturday at his rally in Pennsylvania. Obviously, there's been a ton of buzz around that. Everything from, I think Marsha Blackburn was chasing the head of the Secret Service around the RNC, which wasn't great. But I think I know where you're going to go with this, but any way you slice it, without even getting into political ramifications, I can't believe we would have to do that. Like, what did you see coming out of that?
Look, I don't think it's going to change a damn thing. I don't think it had any impact on the vote. You look at the polls that came out afterwards, and you could argue, and even if there was slight slippage, whether that had anything to do with the assassination attempt, or was just further erosion of Democrats carping about Biden's age or whatever, it just didn't have an impact. I didn't think it would. I mean, throughout history, there's been no kind of where we've had past assassinations and assassination attempts. There wasn't it never showed up in polling differential afterwards. And I think it was all the way back to 1968 with Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King. There was no, the reality of the violence against the civil rights movement and against leaders in that movement did not, what happened? Richard Nixon became president of the United States through all of it. So, I mean, that's not going to happen. I didn't think that. The one thing I realized is like irony is just dead on Twitter or on social media, particularly because I tweeted.
You just realized that?
Yeah, I know. I keep learning the lesson. But I tweeted, however divided we are, we must resolve our differences at the ballot box. Violence to stop the peaceful transfer of presidential power is un-American, unacceptable, and must be condemned. What we need is reconciliation, not retribution and revenge. And what struck me was how many, and frankly, a lot of them were people on the left, who then admonished me about, wait, an assassination attempt is not some attempt to stop the peaceful transfer of presidential power. And, be careful what you're saying. We don't want to, why should we reconcile, et cetera. No, folks, I wasn't talking about the assassination attempt. Just so everybody's clear. Read what I said. Violence to stop the peaceful transfer of presidential power is un-American, unacceptable, and must be condemned. That's January 6th, my friends. It was violence to stop the peaceful transfer of presidential power. And then, who are we? Well, Biden and the pro-democracy folks are for reconciliation. And by the way, who keeps speaking and saying and using the words, I'll be your retribution and I'm out for revenge? That would be Donald Trump. So here in the face of an assassination attempt, I tweet that, first of all, however divided we are, we must resolve our differences at the ballot box. And I don't look, maybe an attempt on a presidential candidate is not a attempt to stop the peaceful transfer of power. I didn't mean that he was going to win the election. I just meant violence of any kind that prevents that, but including January 6th. Maybe that's what I should have said to make it more clear to people. But anyway, it's just and a lot of other people blame me for coming to the aid of the shooter for some reason with that tweet. It's just absolutely amazing at where we're at. And I am somebody who believes that we need reconciliation, not retribution and revenge. And frankly, I wish that President Biden had said that when he gave his response, that if he had said what we need in this moment is reconciliation, not retribution and revenge, I think people might have got who the retribution and revenge guy is and who the reconciliation people are. But I guess it got missed in the moment.
Look, I do want to end on something a little more positive. And our friend David Yankovic had what I thought was a really amazing tweet. We'll put it in the show notes. But the thing you got to know about David is he's always been really, really involved with basically social organizing and on social media. And I mention that off the top because, as you've seen in response to your tweet, people tend to go to social media right away and just fire things off. People tend to cope through social media. They tend to post through it. And the emotions are faster. They're more raw. But he said, and I thought this was really good, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, he said, I keep thinking about Obama's line, "We are the ones we've been waiting for." And then he says, "No one is going to save us except us. We faced all this already, and get this time we know what to do. Don't allow third parties to split the vote. Stop disinfo. Promote our record of accomplishments. Get people off the couch and to vote. We have won again and again because we're a community who cares about each other, who checks in on our friends, and who cares about what happens to everyone, not just those who agree with us. If we stand together as we've done these past 8 years and gotten better and better at it, we will win, I promise." And I would heartily co-sign that. So thank you, David.
Yeah, no, and that's actually something we've been saying from the get-go here on the podcast, that this thing's close, but there's more of us than there are of them. We have to get people to energize and vote. Again, events are going to happen that are going to get you down and get you up. But the fact is, in the end, time after time, 2018, 2020, 2022, when the red wave never came, we've been saying, they do the crazy, we do the work. And what David Yankovic is saying is essentially that. Let them keep doing the crazy stuff they're doing at their convention. And don't get down in the down times. It just means we got to work harder. But we will win in November. Donald Trump is not going to be the president of the United States. He's not going to be reelected and sent back there. And one more time, 53, we're now up to a majority of the American people believe that he's a grave danger to democracy and must not be returned to the Oval Office. That's multiple times now where people have been asked, and including the words grave danger. Over 50% of Americans, including 53% of independents, believe that. Remember that we are in a place where we're the defenders of democracy against somebody that now a majority of the American people believe is a grave danger to it. There'll certainly be other issues, abortion, the economy, inflation, but in the end, that's what this will be about. Joe Biden will do what's best, make the best decision to give us our chance to reach as many of those 53% as possible and get them to the polls. That's our job, and that's what we'll do. So thanks, everyone, for listening to That Trippi Show. This podcast will always be free with support from our advertisers and is part of Resolute Square. Check out the latest at resolutesquare.com/Trippi. Please subscribe to That Trippi Show and leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen. Also, if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next step. The algorithm actually will get us promoted to more people, and we want to get our message out. So you can always send us a question to thattrippishow@gmail.com or leave us a question and a review on iTunes. We'll see you next week, I'm sure, or it could be 5 years from now, but it'll be next week. See you then.
Resolute Square.